Hi, everyone. Welcome to the CAF News. Today, we're kind of flipping the script a little bit on our usual technology-based narrative. We often talk about models, chips, platforms, but today we're going to focus a little more directly on people, humans in technology. In an age of AI and automation, where does that leave us? What are humans worth? We'll talk about Brazil's interesting move to pay citizens for data, scientific discoveries that we actually emit light and have electromagnetic waves about us, and then to tech layoffs as technology affects humans also. So we'll dig into humans in the digital world. And we'll be doing that with Bryce as usual. Bryce, how you doing?
Doing good, Kevin. And I'm really interested with this light thing. I mean, I'm a fan of Star Trek, where they would go with these little like tricorders over people and sort of analyze what's wrong with them, maybe even fix them up.
Yeah.
Is this what we're really talking about now? Are we getting to that point where we're going to have diagnostic devices that can figure stuff out just by scanning a person like that? Is that what is this thing?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a phenomenon called ultra weak photon emission. It has been known for quite a while. Um, it is very, very, very weak, but all living organisms, humans down to basic single cell bacteria, whatever, any any living organism as a byproduct of just metabolic activity will emit photons 1,000 times weaker than what you or my eyes can register. But very sensitive instruments can detect it as kind of a fluctuating glow. And the interesting part, and what may be something that can be used in the future, is that these emissions aren't constant; they're not static. It changes. It's a popular phrase these days that so and so has had a glow up. Well, I mean that it's actually true. People do glow, and you will glow more or glow less, correlated to oxidative stress and circadian rhythms and even mental states. Now, there's not a lot of research in this area. They don't have a lot of data
Okay.
on exactly what kinds of, if you're under stress, how much does it affect your photon emission? But they're experimenting. I think it's called biophoton monitoring. We may all, one day have like a biophoton monitoring device, sort of like you're mentioning with Star Trek, as a very non-invasive kind of diagnostic tool to just measure your health and detect disease, stress, inflammation, any kind of, changes that these light emissions might indicate.
I think that's really cool, and it would be really interesting, as we go forward. There's a lot of longevity technologies that are coming out. A lot of them that depend on data and understanding what's happening with, who we are, right? Even if you look at what's his name, Brian, I think it's Brian Johnson, the
Brian
longevity
Johnson.
guy. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, his thing is like collect a lot of data, and
Yeah.
now if that becomes accessible, I mean, there's a whole thing, that this could open up. I think this is really probably a couple of years away yet from, being in our, I don't know if it would be in our mobile phones for a while, but something like that, a device that where you could just go in and, maybe understand even something as core as mitochondrial health, right? Like what's our
Yeah.
cellular, how's that working out? And that really gives
Absolutely.
you a handle on any things that might be, aging a person faster, moving them ahead, and areas to look at without having to go into a clinic, even maybe a self-diagnostic, or even tying that in with a clinic and the health record. Man,
Sure.
that's huge power, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. There was another story. I don't know if we shared it in our pre-read, but some researchers in Texas have done experiments with ultra fine, they call them tattoos, It's like a tape kind of that has sensors that you put on your skin,
Okay.
and it detects different kind of electrodermal activity. The skin's response to stress induced sweating. They're almost invisible, very very small, and they can connect wirelessly so that you get a real-time stress monitoring. And they're
Oh,
talking about
wow.
using them, for example, for air traffic controllers or pilots, or so that they can tell you're getting to an area where you might make lower quality decisions. Let's take a break or whatever. So something similar, not the photons, but that's already happening now. You can put it on, and I don't know if it'll talk to
I
you.
think as we get more advanced, a lot of these technologies, these immersive technologies, are going to be easier to use. They'll be more incorporated into our environment and massively beneficial without having to have any skills. Like I like that idea with the air traffic controller.
Mm,
There's a stress trigger. Get the guy off. Maybe he needs a few minutes, right?
yeah.
And it makes you just wonder, the payback of that in terms of maybe human life. And really moving forward, I think we're also going to see other types of systems outside of AI start to really move forward, like some of these areas and some of these technologies. I think everybody's focused on artificial intelligence now. But when you start to say, okay, we're going to build immersive systems that maybe monitor people, get a better idea, it's a whole new technology. I know we were talking a little bit earlier, there's some movement today with quantum computing. There's some significant breakthroughs. Again, another technology besides AI. And I think everybody, I think, is a little bit too focused on that one technology. But having said that, it seems to be the place to go. And that's our next topic, is talking about layoffs. And it really looks like a lot of the tech companies have started to do a lot of the layoffs. Um, and what's like, there's some pretty big numbers behind that, right, Kevin? Like, what's the?
Yeah. Unfortunately, a negative effect for some people, technology on humans. Yeah. Last week, I believe we touched on the Microsoft layoffs,
Yep.
which they insisted were not, the clearing out the bottom 10% dead wood, but that it was just more actually restructuring toward more AI focused, leadership, management, implementation work, um, and that, of course, maybe is not beholden to Microsoft. I think that what was in our story research was something like in 2025 alone, and we're only 5 months plus in, more than 60,000 layoffs across hundreds of companies, large and small.
Yep.
And what are the reasons? Many, of course. There's still inflation. There's pressure from investors. The pivot to AI is you know
Well,
both
that's the
forcing a change in composition and operational efficiencies. There's a lot of things
and,
going
and
on.
and that's really an interesting thing that you're pointing out, like the AI thing. I think there's, even though there's a headcount reduction in a lot of these companies, their market value is still massively increasing. Like we're seeing a lot of this headcount in
Mm.
the Magnificent Seven, the Fabulous Five, Microsoft, companies like that are so what's really happening there, and it looks like these layoffs are sort of a efficiency signal, perhaps, or retargeting to focus more on things like AI. Um, and I mean that I think there's that part of it. Is it good to focus on AI? I mean, that's the first question that comes out of this one. It looks like a lot of big companies are on the bandwagon. They're betting on AI, right? And I really have to put out, from what we're talking about before, there's a lot of other technologies that could be these dark horses that come out of nowhere and start to shift the landscape fairly soon, I would think. I mean, if you look at how fast AI has moved right now, like a year ago, the idea of agentic AI wasn't even on the table. And now if you're not doing it, you're not talking the language anymore. Um,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on that, Kevin? That's
Well, I mean, this particularly was about tech workers in the Fab Five or Magnificent Seven. And certainly companies are trimming workforces while they're doubling down on AI and cloud. So it does make you question the kind of human costs of digital transformation. And does as companies become more efficient, do humans become more disposable? It's a good question. The CEO of Anthropic, who of course has his own message to be putting out, was very, he wasn't keeping it just to tech at all. He was saying, we are already at a level where we are replacing any number of entry-level workers in many, many, many industries. And that bar is only going to raise over time. I've seen people, of course, then, ringing the alarm saying, well, if you don't have an entry-level worker who is spending 5 years learning from people above them, where are we in 5 years? There isn't going to be, a cohort of trained individuals who can even perform the creative parts of these different jobs. So tech is scaling, but people are shrinking. So yeah, what's optimal? What does optimize?
And I mean, the other question is like, what do you need to do? Like if you're retooling your human resource component, so to speak, right? And there's training, it brings up a really great question. Where should people be focusing their careers right now? I think is a huge question.
Yeah.
And on the surface, it sounds like, well, go into AI, but that is probably going to not be a long window, like with AI, like you're saying, taking over. And so it really leads to a really open question. We'd love to hear from some of the viewers. What are your thoughts right now on that, like the whole retooling thing?
Yeah, that would be fascinating to hear from people, even unfortunately, maybe people who've been affected by this, either by losing a job or especially new graduates unable to find jobs. I saw something about the most recent Harvard, I'm not sure which MBA, but a Harvard MBA cohort where third of them, I think, after X number of months, still were unemployed, not able to find employment. Largely, I mean, there's been some uncertainty in the last 5 months, but I'm sure some of it is companies thinking, well, should I be paying that premium for that Harvard MBA when I might be able to pay OpenAI $200 a month and be getting approximately the same value? Which is the same kind of question that's hitting Deloitte, Accenture,
Yes.
McKinsey, BCG, any of those people as well. So yeah, that's, there's a lot of ramifications here. So it'd be fascinating to hear from anybody out there. Drop it in the comments, reach out. We'd love to explore that angle, how humans are being affected by technology.
And on the flip side, there's certainly an empowerment angle. So that's our third story now.
Yeah.
And this comes from I remember some time ago, I was reaching out to Alex Pentland, who talked about this idea of data stewardship, that every person has data that they could actually have a share of if other people are using it to do analytics. And so basically, I let people use my data and searching for AI, but I get a percentage back, probably a small percentage, but still a percentage back. But that's actually happening now. There's actually, I think in Brazil, there's some stuff happening there, Kevin. What's up with that?
Yeah, I find this fascinating as well. What's happening in Brazil is kind of a bold kind of data experiment and democratization, which I always love to see. They're piloting a program where citizens can earn money from their personal data. They're setting up data wallets. And it's in partnership with a California-based firm where your personal data is simply an asset. It's economic property, and you can monetize it through consent-based transactions. And that can, I don't know what the remuneration is necessarily, if it's, some kind of coin or what, or a deposit to your bank account. But they are considering legislation around personal data as digital property that you can get compensation for. And I think that's really interesting. Being in Europe with GDPR, every time I go to any website, I always have to choose what set of cookies they can keep, what they can't. If there was a little dollar sign and I could make 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 cents by saying yes to this one and no to that one, that would be a very interesting future.
And you point out I think two things that, of interest to the viewers. First is that this change has come with sort of a change in legislation in Brazil where data is viewed as property. And then I think the company involved is called Drumwave, just as a reference.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. And so that is really interesting where it's going. I think this idea of data stewardship could become a big deal in the future, especially if there's people that have more interesting data. I don't know what that would mean offhand, but I could speculate what more, kind of imagine somebody maybe going into health protocols or something that you want to track, something happening to them. Now they have all this personal data. Well, I think they should be compensated for it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, Google has made that money for a very long time. Am I just a single adult in the household, or do I have two children? That's suddenly much more interesting in some cases. Do I also have a car? Do I need insurance? All that kind of thing. We've heard for a long time, if there's no advertising, you are the product. Well, it's nice in Brazil, at least, where you're not just the product, you can become a stakeholder. There's an aspect of monetization, of course, but you get to control it. It's economic self-sovereignty. It remains to be seen how it gets implemented, if they can pull it off. But it'd be a super interesting precedent to kind of shift the power from these huge platforms, Facebook making money off of all your data, to the people making money off of their data. That would be great.
Absolutely. Kevin, great discussion today. As usual, we encourage anybody who wants to comment below. Please let us know what you're thinking, especially with the layoffs and, how are companies being redirected. We'd love to get your thoughts on this. Thanks a lot, Kevin. Great discussion.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Bryce. Yeah. Anybody with comments on this, we'd love to hear it. If we want a future where technology lifts people up instead of completely pushing them out, even as architects, people like us will need to design with that kind of intent. The most valuable operating systems don't run on silicon; they run on gray matter. So it's about us in the end.
Awesome. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Bryce. Thanks, everybody.